Hey guys, tonight we travel back to a city that glitters like a dream and bleeds like a wound. Constantinople, the year 1203, the heart of the Byzantine Empire. You're standing at the edge of the Golden Horn, the salt wind on your face, and before you rises the city that every traveller calls the Queen of Cities. It's unlike anything you've ever seen, a skyline of domes and towers rising from the water like a crown. The Hagia Sophia glows under the setting sun, its great dome floating as if suspended by the will of heaven itself. Gold mosaics flicker in the light, marble streets hum with life. You can hear bells from 100 churches, traders shouting in Greek, Arabic, Latin and Italian, and the call of gulls circling above the masts of Venetian ships. But if you listen closer, beneath all the splendour, there's something else. Tension. The city is rich beyond imagining, yet everyone seems afraid to lose it. Every merchant eyes his neighbour like a thief. Every priest prays for protection from his own emperor. You can feel it in the air, the mix of incense and fear. Constantinople has stood for nearly 9 centuries, ever since Constantine the Great made it the new Rome. It's a city of saints and schemers, of relics and rebellions. It has survived Persians, Arabs, Vikings, Bulgars, and even Crusaders before, always bruised, but never broken. Its walls are legend. The Theodosian walls, 3 lines of stone and moat that no army has ever breached. To the Byzantines, those walls are not just fortifications, they are proof that God himself favours this city. Inside the palace, though, that faith is wearing thin. The Emperor Alexios III Angelos sits on the throne, bloated, anxious, drowning in jewels and incompetence. His eyes are heavy, his hands soft. The empire under him is like the gold leaf on the palace walls, bright on the surface, flaking underneath. You walk through the great palace, and the corridors echo with whispers. Courtiers scheming for influence, eunuchs carrying secret messages, generals pretending loyalty while dreaming of revolt. Even the mosaics on the walls seem to watch you, their glass eyes glinting with judgment. Down in the hippodrome, the city's pulse still beats. Crowds fill the vast arena, cheering their favourite chariot teams, the blues and the greens, but beneath the chants lies centuries of factional hatred. Politics, religion, and sport all blur together here. Today, they shout for races. Tomorrow, they might riot for an emperor's head. At night, Constantinople glows with oil lamps and flickering candles. From the upper terraces, you can see the light stretching across the Bosporus to Asia, the black waters between glittering with reflections. And yet, for all its splendour, the city feels lonely, isolated in its pride. Once the Byzantine Empire ruled from Italy to Syria. Now its borders have shrunk to a sliver of land around this shimmering capital. Still, the people believe themselves untouchable. They call the Crusaders who pass through barbarians, sneer at Latin priests, and trust their walls to keep the world at bay. After all, what army could possibly challenge the might of Constantinople? The answer is already forming far to the west, in the minds of men who believe they march for God. Though God has long since left their banners. For now, though, life goes on. In the forums, moneylenders argue under statues of emperors. In the taverns, sailors trade coins stamped with the image of Christ Pantocrator. In the monasteries, monks copy scriptures by lamplight, unaware that soon the same lamps will burn for fire instead of faith. You pass a church, the Church of the Holy Apostles, and step inside. Candles flicker over golden icons, their faces serene, almost human. You can hear the low hum of a choir rehearsing in the apse, the sound like breath held in eternity. It's peaceful, comforting, perfect. And you realise this is what makes Constantinople so vulnerable. It believes perfection is permanent. Outside, a storm gathers, ships being built in Venice, debts being counted, oaths being twisted. You can almost smell the sea breeze that will one day carry an army not of Muslims but of Christians to these very gates. The men who will come wear crosses on their chests and greed in their hearts. They will call themselves Crusaders. The Byzantines will call them monsters. For now, though, the Queen of Cities sleeps, dreaming golden dreams under a darkening sky. If you listen closely, you can hear the wind whistle along the walls. Not yet a siege wind, but it's coming. And when it does, it will bring not salvation but fire. It begins, as so many disasters do, with the sound of preaching. Not the quiet kind, not the gentle whisper of monks in cloisters. No, This is thunder in the town squares of France, drums in the marketplaces of Flanders, banners snapping in the wind while 1,000 voices cry, Deus vult, God wills it. It's 1198, 6 years before the fall of Constantinople, and Pope Innocent III is calling for a new crusade. Jerusalem, the holy city, is still in Muslim hands, and Christendom's pride still aches from the losses of the Second and Third Crusades. The old knights remember Richard the Lionheart's glories. The young ones dream of repeating them. Across Europe, preachers stir the crowds. This time, they promise, the journey will finish what Richard began. And you, a knight of modest estate, weary of local feuds and debts, hear that call echo through your village square. You see your lord kneel, take the cross, and suddenly the world seems bigger. The promise is intoxicating. Forgive your sins, serve your God, and return home a hero. What could be holier than that? But holiness costs money. A crusade isn't a sermon, it's a massive logistics nightmare. Men, horses, weapons, ships, food, coin. And so the first cracks appear before the army even marches. There are too many knights and not enough gold. The Pope orders Europe's rulers to contribute, but kings have grown weary of the East. England is broke after Richard's ransoms, France is divided, and Germany is chasing its own emperors. So the Crusaders turn to the only power that still has ships enough to carry them. Venice. Ah, Venice. The floating merchant republic, half Christian, half pirate, all profit. Its doge, Enrico Dandolo, is blind, ancient, and sharper than any sword. When the Crusader envoys arrive, pledging to pay for a fleet to transport 30,000 men to Egypt, the chosen starting point, Dandolo nods slowly. We can build it, he says, but it will cost you dearly. The deal is struck. The Venetians will build ships, supply food, and sail with the Crusaders, in exchange for 85,000 silver marks, an astronomical sum, a holy war bought on credit. For months the shipyards of Venice thunder with activity. Galleys and transports rise from the lagoon like iron monsters. But when the time comes to depart in 1202, the Crusaders realize the obvious. They can't pay. Only a fraction of the promised army has shown up. Fewer men mean fewer purses, and Venice doesn't do charity. The Doge gathers the leaders, Boniface of Montferrat, Baldwin of Flanders, Louis of Blois, in the great hall of St. Mark's. The room gleams with mosaics of Christ and angels, their golden eyes unblinking. You owe me, Dandolo says quietly, but I am a practical man. Perhaps we can settle this debt another way. He points to the map of the Adriatic. There is a city, Zara. It rebelled against Venice. It is wealthy, fortified, Christian, and yours for the taking. Help me reclaim it, and I will forgive your debt. The Crusader leaders hesitate. To attack a Christian city, to sack fellow believers under the Pope's banner, it feels like heresy. But Dandolo leans closer. Without ships, you will never reach Jerusalem. Without payment, your vows mean nothing. You can almost feel the air shift, holiness bending to necessity, and so they agree. In November 1202, the Crusader fleet sails across the Adriatic, the white crosses on their sails gleaming under the winter sun. When they reach Zara, the city's defenders stand on the walls waving the papal flag, begging for mercy. The Crusaders hesitate, torn between guilt and greed. Then the Doge gives the order. The bombardment begins. Stones crash against the walls. Fire arrows arc through the sky. Priests on both sides cry, "Christ have mercy," while men cut each other down in his name. When the city falls, the looting begins. Houses stripped, churches desecrated, citizens slaughtered. Pope Innocent, upon hearing the news, is furious. He excommunicates the entire crusade, Venetians and knights alike. But from across the sea, his anger is just parchment. No one listens. The men in the camp shrug, muttering, "He'll forgive us once we win Jerusalem." But Jerusalem is no longer the goal. Over the winter, while Zara still smoulders, envoys arrive with a new proposition, one that will twist the crusade into something far darker. A young man named Alexios Angelos, the son of a deposed Byzantine emperor, appears before the Crusader lords. He promises them gold, supplies, and the submission of the Greek Church to Rome if they help him reclaim his throne in Constantinople. The lords look at one another. Constantinople, the greatest city in Christendom, rich beyond imagining, its treasuries overflowing. The Doge listens, nodding. "Help this boy," he says, "and all debts shall be paid." And just like that, the crusade to free Jerusalem becomes a crusade to capture a Christian capital. In the streets of Zara, you hear the news and feel your stomach drop. You took the cross to march east against the infidel. Now you're sailing against fellow Christians, lured by gold and promises. The Pope's blessing feels faint and far away. But it's too late to turn back. The ships are ready, the debts unpaid, and the winds blow east. When the fleet leaves Venice in the spring of 1203, its banners still bear the cross, but its heart beats to a different rhythm, the drum of ambition, the whisper of gold. Far ahead, beyond the blue waters of the Aegean, the domes of Constantinople wait. And if the Byzantines could see what sails toward them, they would pray for Muslims instead. When you stand on the deck of a Venetian galley with the wind whipping your cloak and the salt spray burning your eyes, you understand something the priests never mentioned in their sermons. War isn't about faith, it's about logistics, and in 1203 no one controls logistics like Venice. You look around at the fleet, hundreds of ships, sails gleaming white under the Adriatic sun, rigging creaking like the bones of a giant. These vessels are miracles of engineering, sleek war galleys with rams of iron and wide-bellied transports that can carry horses, siege towers, and thousands of men. It's the largest fleet Christendom has ever built, but it isn't built for free. The Doge of Venice, Enrico Dandolo, stands at the prow of his flagship, his face hidden beneath a white hood, his eyes blind but unerring. He's past 80 years old, yet his voice carries like iron through the sea air. Every ship, every sail, every bolt of wood belongs to Venice until the debt is paid, he reminds the Crusader leaders, and debts, my lords, do not forgive themselves. Dandolo is no saint. He's a merchant king, a man who's turned piety into profit so smoothly it almost feels holy. To him, this crusade is not salvation. It's a business venture. The knights may talk of Jerusalem, but Dandolo dreams of trade routes, ports, and monopolies. You've seen his city, the labyrinth of canals, the marble palaces reflected in the lagoon, the smell of salt and gold mingling in the air. The Venetians are the middlemen of the world. They sell silk from the east to kings in the west, and when war breaks out they sell weapons to both sides. They call it commerce. God might call it something else. When the crusade first came begging for ships, the Doge made his offer not as a favour, but as a trap, one lined with silver and sealed with prayer. And when the knights couldn't pay the 85,000 silver marks they'd promised, he smiled and found them another target. That target was Zara, a Christian city on the Dalmatian coast that had dared to rebel against Venetian authority. The Doge's voice echoed in the great hall of St. Mark's. God rewards those who help his servants. Free Zara from her sins, and I will free you from your debt. And so, the men who had sworn to liberate Jerusalem instead liberated Venice's balance sheets. Now, as the fleet sails east from Zara's smoking ruins, Dandolo's influence has only grown. The crusade isn't led by kings anymore, it's led by bankers. Even the great nobles, Boniface of Montferrat, Baldwin of Flanders, Louis of Blois, defer to the old Venetian. They trust his ships, his maps, his silver. They think he's helping them. He isn't. One night, on the open sea, you overhear two Venetian sailors talking beside a lantern. These Franks, one says. They think they're going to Jerusalem. Let them think so. Every oarstroke takes them closer to our real prize. What prize? Asks the other. The sailor grins. The greatest city in the world, and when it falls, we'll own half of it. You don't yet know the name that glows in the Doge's mind, but you will soon. In the councils aboard the flagship, the young Prince Alexios Angelos now sits beside the Crusader barons. Nervous, eager, clutching the promises he's made. His father, Isaac II, was the rightful emperor of Byzantium before being deposed and blinded by his brother Alexios III. The boy swears that if the Crusaders restore him to the throne, he will repay them in gold, ships, and loyalty. 200,000 silver marks, he promises, and the union of the Greek and Latin churches. No more schism, no more division. One Christ, one emperor, one cause. The barons exchange glances. 200,000 marks, more than enough to pay Venice and crown themselves heroes. Dandolo's blind eyes flick toward the boy. "And you can guarantee this?" he asks softly. The prince hesitates. "When I am emperor, yes." "Ah," Dandolo says, smiling. "When?" You can feel the shift in the room, the moment when the holy war becomes a political investment. The Doge has no interest in the cross or the crown. He's thinking of Constantinople's harbours, of its warehouses stuffed with silk and grain, of the wealth that flows from the Black Sea like a golden river. He's thinking of the Venetian merchants expelled from the city years ago, their goods confiscated by Byzantine hands. He's thinking of revenge disguised as redemption, and now the perfect excuse floats right into his lap, a legitimate heir asking for help, a cause both profitable and pious. When dawn comes, the decision is made. The Crusader fleet will sail for Constantinople. The men cheer. Some believe they are on a mission of divine justice. Others think only of gold. A few, like you, feel something colder in your stomach. You know that once a crusade turns against Christians, it's not a crusade anymore. It's piracy with hymns. Still, the wind is with you. The sails rise. The fleet cuts across the Aegean, white crosses flapping in the sunlight. Behind the ships, the Pope's orders of excommunication still echo uselessly across Europe. Ahead lies the richest city in Christendom, a city that has never fallen to an enemy, that calls itself eternal. And on the prow of his flagship, Enrico Dandolo lifts his blind face toward the horizon. "Onward," he says. "God wills it." His voice is steady, his smile thin. He's not lying. God may will it. But Venice will profit from it. As the fleet sails toward the Bosporus, you realize something simple and terrifying. This crusade isn't being led by saints or sinners. It's being led by accountants. When the fleet leaves Zara, the smell of smoke still clings to the sails. The winter winds of the Adriatic bite through armour and conscience alike, and the men huddle on the decks, whispering to one another in uneasy tones. They've sacked a Christian city for profit, not piety. And even the hardest knights can feel something twisting in their chests. Some mutter that God will turn his face away from them now. Others drink until they forget. The Doge of Venice, Enrico Dandolo, does not forget. He stands at the prow of his ship, hands clasped, face like stone. Behind him his city grows richer by the hour. The debt is partly paid, the fleet remains his, and the men who once dreamed of Jerusalem now march under his shadow. You wake one morning to a sound that's become familiar. The crash of waves against wood, the creak of rigging and the murmurs of disillusioned faith. The priests still hold mass every dawn, but fewer men attend. The cross on the sails has become an emblem of irony, painted bright and proud above a deck slick with Christian blood. The fleet turns eastward, following the coastline of Greece. The waters are blue and deceptively calm, the shores dotted with monasteries whose bells toll as the Crusaders pass. In those bells, you can almost hear a warning. Turn back. This is not your road. But the road has already been bought. Every day, the young prince Alexios Angelos, pale, desperate, voice trembling with youth, moves among the leaders, begging for trust. "Once we reach Constantinople," he says, "the people will rise for me. They hate my uncle. They will open the gates. You will be hailed as liberators." You study his face, his noble features smudged with travel, his gold embroidery frayed at the edges. He looks less like a prince and more like a gambler who's run out of dice, but his promises shine brighter than reason. At night, in the flickering light of oil lamps, you sit among the soldiers listening to rumours ripple through the fleet. "They say the boy will make us rich beyond imagining," someone says. "Gold, silks, relics, all waiting behind those walls," another laughs. "Aye, and he'll probably hand us the keys to heaven while he's at it." But not everyone laughs. Some remember the words of Pope Innocent III, echoing from distant Rome. "Let no man raise his sword against fellow Christians, lest he damn his own soul." Those who still wear their crosses with sincerity whisper that this voyage feels cursed. The sea seems to agree. Storms lash the ships, waves rise like mountains, and thunder cracks across the horizon. For days you drift half blind through rain and fog. The masts groan. Sailors curse the weather. Priests bless the wind. One morning the sun breaks through, and ahead you see a new shore. The islands of the Aegean, stepping stones toward destiny. You land briefly at Corfu, where Byzantine merchants watch the fleet from the safety of their walls. They know who you are. They know what you've done. Their faces mix curiosity and dread. To them, you're not pilgrims, you're wolves wearing crucifixes, and yet the Byzantines underestimate what's coming. They think you're just another band of greedy Latins, easily bought off or distracted. They do not realize the hunger that has taken root in this army, a hunger that no gold can truly feed. In the spring of 1203, the fleet regroups at Abydos, near the mouth of the Dardanelles. Here, the Crusaders get their first glimpse of the legendary city that has haunted their dreams, Constantinople. The golden dome of Hagia Sophia glitters like a second sun, its reflection rippling across the sea. Beyond it, walls rise tier after tier, colossal and perfect, stretching as far as the eye can see. Some men fall to their knees at the sight. Surely, one whispers, this cannot fall by mortal hands. The Doge, blind though he is, senses the awe in the silence. He speaks softly. No wall stands forever. Even paradise has gates. You spend the night anchored in the calm waters of the Golden Horn. Fires flicker along the shoreline. In the distance you can see the torches of watchmen walking the battlements. The city is alive, breathing, unaware that the army outside its gates bears the same faith as the people within. The next morning a council is held aboard the Venetian flagship. The air smells of pitch and salt. The leaders sit in a circle: Dandolo, Boniface of Montferrat, Baldwin of Flanders, Louis of Blois, and at the centre young Alexios trembling slightly. Boniface speaks first. "We are here as promised. Now tell us, boy, will your people welcome us or fight us?" Alexios swallows hard. "They will welcome us," he insists. "They remember my father's reign. They know I bring allies, not invaders." The Doge tilts his head. "And if they do not?" The prince hesitates. "Then they will learn." A ripple of laughter, half amusement, half disbelief. That night, messengers are sent to the city walls with a proclamation written in Greek and Latin. "We come not as conquerors, but as restorers. We demand the return of Isaac II and his son Alexios. Open your gates and know peace. Resist and face judgment." The reply comes in arrows. By dawn, the first skirmishes begin. Crusader crossbows answering Byzantine catapults. The tension that's been building for months snaps like a bowstring. In the Venetian camps, the soldiers prepare siege engines while the priests sing hymns that sound more like dirges. You help haul timber, your hands blistered and raw, and you realize how far the army has drifted from its purpose. The Holy War has become a war of creditors, princes and gamblers. Still, the men fight, not because they believe in the cause anymore, but because turning back means facing their debts, their dishonour, their ghosts. The Doge, standing beside his banner of St. Mark, gives the order that will change Christendom forever. Forward. The Lord helps those who pay their debts. And the Crusaders march toward the walls of the greatest Christian city on earth, singing hymns that now sound like threats. In the sunlight, their armour gleams, silver, gold, red, and for a moment, it's beautiful. Then the first Byzantine ballista stone crashes into their ranks, and the beauty ends. The crusade that began with prayers now marches to the rhythm of coins, and every step forward is a debt written in blood. The air over the Bosporus is thick with smoke and salt. From your camp on the shore you can see Constantinople's triple walls glimmering in the sun. 3 colossal belts of stone and tower, unbroken and perfect, their shadows stretching like fortresses within fortresses. To the Crusaders they look less like human handiwork and more like divine arrogance carved into the earth. You remember the boy, Alexios Angelos, the pale, trembling prince who promised that this glittering monster of a city would open its gates at his name. He stands now on the deck of a Venetian galley, wrapped in a purple cloak far too large for him, staring at the city of his birth. "They will welcome me," he says, voice quivering. "They have to." You can almost pity him. But inside those walls his uncle, Emperor Alexios III, is less sentimental. The old usurper sits on the throne of Blakeney Palace, his gold crown heavy, his eyelids heavier. When his advisors rush in with news that an enormous crusader fleet has anchored in the Golden Horn, and that the banner of his nephew flies among them, the emperor merely raises one eyebrow. "How many?" he asks. "Hundreds of ships, Majesty." "Thousands of men, Venetians and Franks together." Alexios III laughs softly. "Then they have come to die." The walls will teach them piety, but his confidence is hollow. The empire he rules is decayed from within, generals who plot more than they fight, officials who sell positions like fruit, soldiers who haven't been paid in months. The people hate their emperor, not because he's cruel, but because he's useless. The same city that once defied the armies of caliphs and khans now trembles under the weight of its own corruption. The next morning, the Crusader fleet unfurls its sails. Venetian galleys glide into formation across the Golden Horn, their decks packed with armoured men. Priests stand at the bows holding relics high, splinters of the true cross, bones of saints, banners embroidered with Christ Pantocrator. The sun glints on the iron helms of knights from France, Flanders and Lombardy. The people of Constantinople gather on the walls to watch. Thousands of them, men and women, nobles and beggars. They squint into the light, seeing the cross on every sail and wondering, are they coming as saviours or as wolves? Then a trumpet sounds. You feel it in your chest, that rising dread, that electric hum that comes before violence. Siege towers creak, catapults roll into place. The Venetian oars dip once, twice, cutting the blue surface of the Horn. And in that charged silence, the Crusaders deliver their ultimatum. We come to restore your rightful emperor, Isaac II, and his son Alexios. Yield the city and be spared. The response from the walls is a storm of arrows. The first battle of Constantinople begins in a roar of flame and iron. The Venetians drive their ships against the sea walls, hooks biting into stone. Archers loose volleys that fill the air like black rain. Byzantine defenders fire back with Greek fire, the city's ancient weapon. Jets of liquid flame that hiss and scream as they strike the ships, igniting wood and flesh alike. The sea burns. You pull men from the water, their armour glowing red-hot, their screams fading to ash. Around you, priests shout prayers over the din, promising paradise for the fallen, though no one believes them anymore. On land, the Frankish knights attempt to storm the northern walls. Their ladders splinter, their siege towers collapse under catapult stones the size of boulders. The defenders cheer wildly, but beneath their bravado is fear. They've never seen Latins fight like this, like men possessed. For 2 days the battle rages, neither side breaking. And then, on the third morning, something unthinkable happens. A section of the walls near the harbour, the Blackenay Quarter, falls silent. The defenders have fled. Whether from fear or treachery, no one knows. The Venetians seize the chance. Their ships grind against the stones, planks crash down, and suddenly Crusaders are inside the city. Panic explodes like wildfire. The citizens scream, priests ring bells, church doors slam shut. In the chaos, a group of nobles rush to the palace, shouting at Emperor Alexios III to fight. The emperor listens for a moment, then stands up, removes his crown, and walks away. That night, while fires spread across the northern districts, Alexios III loads his treasures onto a ship and flees into the darkness, the second emperor in 10 years to abandon his throne. When dawn breaks, the gates open. The Crusaders march into Constantinople not as conquerors, but as liberators, or so they tell themselves. The people line the streets in silence, watching their saviours tramp past, their boots leaving bloody prints on marble. And at the Hagia Sophia, the greatest church in the world, the Crusaders' priests anoint 2 men. Isaac II, restored to his throne, blind but smiling weakly, and beside him, his son, Alexios IV, the same trembling boy who led you here. The bells ring, the choir sings, and for a brief dazzling moment the alliance seems real, East and West united under one faith, one empire. But as the incense rises and the crowd shouts, "Axios! He is worthy!" you see the Venetians counting coins in the shadows, their eyes already measuring what can be taken. The promise has been fulfilled, but only on parchment. The boy emperor owes the Crusaders more gold than Byzantium can pay, and the people, already starving, will soon learn what their new allies truly came for. The city that was saved today will burn tomorrow. And when it does, no one will remember who betrayed whom first. The wind off the Bosporus smells of iron and incense, and beneath that, fear. When the Crusader fleet sweeps around the tip of the Golden Horn, its sails blot out the morning sun. Hundreds of ships glide across the shimmering blue like a forest of masts, their banners snapping in the wind, the Red Cross of France, the Black Lion of Flanders, and above all the Winged Lion of Venice. From the city walls, the people of Constantinople watch in stunned silence. They've seen fleets before, Arab, Rus, even Norman, but nothing like this. The horizon itself seems to move. Mothers clutch their children. Monks climb the walls and cross themselves so furiously their knuckles turn white. The noise of the fleet, oars beating in perfect rhythm, the deep thud of war drums, feels less like sound and more like judgment. You stand on one of those ships, the deck pitching beneath your boots, staring up at the vast white walls ahead. They rise higher than you imagined, layer upon layer, towers crowned with gleaming domes, banners of gold and purple fluttering in the sea breeze. The sunlight glints on bronze statues and the gilded crosses of 100 churches. It's breathtaking and completely insane. Even the veterans among you, men who fought in Syria and Sicily, mutter under their breath. No army can take this city, someone says, not without God himself. Beside you, the Doge of Venice, blind but unbowed, listens to the sounds of the city. The sea is calm, he says quietly. That means the world is watching. On shore, the Byzantine defenders man their walls. Trumpets blare from the Blachernae Palace, the imperial residence near the northern fortifications. From the southern walls, archers take their positions, faces grim under iron helmets. They see the Crusader ships, the floating fortresses bristling with siege towers and ladders, and for a moment, even they hesitate. The Byzantines are used to invaders, Turks, Bulgars, Normans, but never an army wearing the same cross as theirs. Inside the palace, Emperor Alexios III paces beneath mosaics of Christ and the Virgin. His courtiers whisper frantically. "They claim to restore your brother, Majesty," one says. "They bring his son, the Prince Alexios." "Fools," the emperor snaps. "They bring ruin." He orders the great chain drawn across the mouth of the Golden Horn, a massive iron barrier stretching from the city walls to the fortress of Galata across the water. It gleams darkly in the sunlight, an ancient defence that stopped every navy to ever challenge the city. The Byzantines watch the Crusader fleet halt at its edge, expecting confusion. Instead, they hear laughter, deep, amused, Venetian laughter. On his flagship, the Doge Dandolo raises a hand. "Cut the chain," he commands. The Venetians row forward, their galleys ramming the smaller ships aside. From their decks, engineers leap onto the fortress of Galata, axes flashing. The Byzantines fight to stop them, but the Venetians are madmen of the sea. They fight like sharks in water, fast and ruthless. Within an hour, the chain breaks. The sound echoes across the harbour, a metallic scream that carries all the way to the Hagia Sophia. Now the Golden Horn lies open, glittering and still, waiting. The Crusader fleet pours in, dropping anchor beneath the city's northern walls. The air fills with the smell of pitch and sweat and fear. Priests move among the soldiers, offering blessings that feel more like bribes. Some men pray aloud, others sharpen blades and try not to think about the irony of storming the most Christian city on earth. You walk to the railing and look up. The walls are immense, carved with marble reliefs, studded with towers, each stone older than the kingdoms you came from. Atop them, the defenders watch like statues. You can see their faces clearly now, proud, angry, afraid. Some shout curses in Greek, Latins, heretics, go back to your pope, but they don't sound sure. That night, the fleet glows with hundreds of campfires. Across the water, Constantinople burns with its own light. Torches in windows, candles flickering in 1,000 churches. Between the two, the Golden Horn reflects everything. Fire above and fire below, heaven and hell mirrored perfectly. From the decks, you can hear music drifting across the water. Byzantine hymns from Hagia Sophia. The voices rise and fall like waves, beautiful and alien. Even hardened soldiers pause to listen. For a moment, the war seems distant. Two halves of Christendom singing to the same God, separated only by greed and salt water. Then a voice calls from the Venetian flagship. It's the Doge. His words carry eerily clear across the quiet water. Men of Venice, men of Christ. Tomorrow we make history. The city of emperors stands before us, and when it falls, so will the pride that divided east and west. Some cheer, some cross themselves, others just stare at the city glowing gold in the moonlight. You can almost believe him. that this is destiny, not disaster. But when you look at the towers and domes of Constantinople, you can't help but feel the truth beneath the prophecy. This isn't divine fate, it's debt collection dressed in armour. The Crusaders don't know it yet, but every oar that beats the water tonight carries them closer to the darkest act in the history of Christendom, and when the first stone flies, there will be no going back. The Golden Horn sleeps, a mirror between two worlds, one that prays for salvation and one that's already traded it for silver. Dawn breaks red over the Golden Horn, the kind of red that stains the sea like spilled wine. Trumpets blare from the ships, echoing off the marble walls of Constantinople, and the greatest siege in Christendom begins. You're standing on the deck of a Venetian galley, your stomach hollow, your armour cold with morning dew. Around you, soldiers are tightening straps, sharpening blades, crossing themselves with trembling hands. The priests move between them, swinging censers that trail smoke and murmuring blessings none of you believe will help. Before you looms the city, an impossible wall of stone, tower upon tower, banners of purple and gold fluttering in the breeze. Beyond them rise the domes of Hagia Sophia and 1,000 smaller churches, their bells tolling in unison. It's beautiful, terrifying, holy. You can't decide whether you're about to storm heaven or hell. The Doge of Venice, blind and ancient, stands on the prow of his flagship, holding the standard of Saint, mark high in his hands. "Men of Venice," he shouts, "the eyes of the world are upon you. Strike for God and for gold." His voice cuts through the sea air like iron. The drums beat, the fleet advances, Venetian engineers steer their ships toward the sea walls, colossal fortifications that stretch for miles along the Horn. The galleys bristle with siege towers lashed to their decks, planked bridges ready to drop onto the battlements. Archers take position, their arrows tipped with flame. Behind them, Frankish knights grip their swords, sweating beneath their helms. The defenders answer with thunder. Catapults on the walls launch stones the size of oxen. They smash into ships, splintering masts and flinging men into the churning water. Archers rain bolts from above. Greek fire, that unholy liquid flame, bursts from bronze tubes, licking across the waves. A single spark touches the sea, and suddenly half the harbour is on fire. The screams echo for miles. You dive behind a bulwark as a burning galley explodes beside you, the heat blinding. Men leap into the water, only to find that it burns too. The smell of pitch and flesh fills your lungs. For a moment you think you've died. But the Venetians don't stop. They ram their ships directly into the walls, grappling hooks clanging against marble. The siege towers rise, scraping against the fortifications. Archers loose volleys, covering the knights who leap across the narrow planks to the battlements. Steel clashes on stone. On land, the Frankish army assaults the Blakeney quarter, where the land walls meet the sea. Their siege engines creak and groan as they hurl boulders toward the city. Every impact shakes the ground. Inside the walls, the Byzantine defenders fight desperately. Archers on the towers, priests carrying icons shouting prayers that sound more like curses. The air smells of salt, blood, and burning oil. At midday, a strange sight. A banner rises over one of the northern towers. The flag of Prince Alexios IV, the rightful emperor the Crusaders came to restore. From the Venetian decks you hear a roar. "The city has turned," someone shouts. "They welcome him." It's not true, not yet. But the lie spreads faster than fire. Encouraged, the Crusaders redouble their assault. By afternoon, 12 towers are blazing. The defenders, overwhelmed and terrified, begin to retreat toward the inner city. Inside Constantinople, chaos erupts. Citizens pour into the streets, clutching icons and relics. The palace guards, realizing Emperor Alexios III has fled, break ranks and vanish into the alleys. The old man has loaded his treasure onto a ship and sailed into exile, abandoning his throne to the boy he betrayed. As night falls, the gates of the city creak open. The Crusaders, exhausted and blackened with soot, march in cautiously. They expect another ambush, another wave of defenders. Instead, they find silence, and the glitter of gold mosaics reflecting the flames of their own torches. At the Hagia Sophia, the great church stands untouched, its doors open as if waiting. The priests inside bow to the young prince, Alexios IV, now proclaimed emperor beside his blind father, Isaac II. The air smells of incense and ash. Bells ring through the night, though no one can tell if it's for victory or mourning. You stand beneath the vast dome, staring at the golden mosaics of Christ Pantocrator. His eyes look down, calm, unblinking, as if he's seen this all before. Around you, crusaders kneel, pretending piety while their fingers trace the jewels set in the altar. The Venetians whisper among themselves, already calculating how much each relic might fetch in Florence or Paris. Outside, the people watch from doorways and rooftops, weary, uncertain, humiliated. They call the Crusaders Latinoi, the Latins, and spit the word like a curse. Their city is not conquered, they tell themselves, merely restored, but even they can see what's really happening. The Crusaders believe they've fulfilled their holy vow. They've restored a Christian emperor, repaired the schism, at least on paper, and secured the church's favour. But deep down, everyone knows the truth. This was never about faith. It was about gold. That night, the city flickers with torchlight, the air heavy with smoke. From the palace, faint music drifts, the coronation feast of Alexios IV. He raises his cup to the gathered lords and Venetians. "You have saved my throne," he says. "Now I will save your souls." The Doge smiles faintly, his blind eyes gleaming. "Your Majesty," he murmurs, "let us begin with the treasury." You step outside into the cold night. The city's skyline glows red where the fires still burn. Above it all, the dome of Hagia Sophia shines gold against the stars. It's beautiful, yes, but fragile. You can feel it in your bones. This peace won't last. Constantinople has been saved by men who don't know how to save anything. And soon, when the promises run out and the gold proves too little, this city will burn in ways even the prophets never imagined. For now, though, the bells ring, the sea sleeps, and history holds its breath. For a few fragile months, Constantinople glitters again. Not with peace, but with pretense. The year is 1203, and the empire that once ruled the world now lives on borrowed time and borrowed gold. By day, the newly restored Emperor Alexios IV rides through the streets, waving to crowds that don't wave back. His father, the old blind Isaac II, sits beside him in the chariot, smiling vaguely, unaware that his son's crown rests on Venetian debts and Frankish swords. From the balconies, the people watch in silence. They don't cheer, they don't curse, they just stare, hollow-eyed. They've seen emperors come and go like tides. They've learned that every new ruler promises salvation, and everyone leaves them poorer. Alexios IV believes he can change that. He's young, idealistic, and disastrously naive. He owes the Crusaders everything, his throne, his crown, his life, and he swears to repay them in full. But the treasury is empty. The vaults beneath the Blachinae Palace, once filled with tribute from Asia and Africa, echo with nothing but dust. So, to fulfill his promises, Alexios does the unthinkable. He orders the melting of church treasures. One morning you see it with your own eyes. Soldiers and priests hauling gilded candlesticks from monasteries, prying jewels from icons, scraping gold leaf from the mosaics of saints. The priests weep. The people scream blasphemy. "He robs God to pay barbarians," a woman shouts in the marketplace. The soldiers strike her down. Word spreads fast. The Latin saviours have turned from liberators to looters. In the taverns of the Forum of Constantine, whispers rise like smoke. "The boy is a puppet," someone says. "The Franks rule us now." "Better the Turk than the Latin," another mutters, and the others nod grimly. Outside the city walls, the Crusaders wait impatiently in their camps, their horses stamping in the mud. The gold trickles in slowly, never enough to satisfy the debts. Every week, emissaries from Alexios come with promises. Soon, very soon, and every week tempers grow shorter. Inside their tents, the barons argue. Boniface of Montferrat wants patience. Baldwin of Flanders demands payment. Enrico Dandolo sits silent, calculating. His blind eyes see more than the rest. He knows what's coming. He can feel it in the shifting winds. By autumn, relations between the Crusaders and the Byzantines collapse completely. The people refuse to supply food to the foreign army. Markets close their gates. Latin merchants are harassed in the streets, their warehouses burned. Priests are spat on, monks beaten. In October, the first anti-Latin riots erupt. You hear the bells ring, then the screams. The mob swarms through the Venetian quarter, torches in hand. They burn churches, slaughter merchants, drag women by the hair. Hundreds die. The Crusaders across the harbour can see the flames from their camps. The Doge watches the smoke rise and smiles thinly. "There," he says, "that is what gratitude looks like." In retaliation, the Venetians set fire to the city's waterfront. The wind turns traitor, driving the flames inland. By nightfall, a third of Constantinople is burning. The sky glows orange, the air is thick with ash and cries. You walk through the ruins the next morning, streets melted into black rivers of pitch, bodies charred beyond recognition. The smell is unforgettable. Children wander barefoot among the ruins, their faces grey with soot. The golden city now looks like the mouth of hell. And yet, amid the wreckage, both sides still pretend there's peace. The emperor sends gifts and apologies. The barons send polite threats. The doge sends merchants. Everyone smiles through clenched teeth. But beneath the surface, alliances crack. Even among the Crusaders, divisions fester. Some knights insist they've strayed too far from their holy purpose. "We came for Jerusalem," they mutter, "not for this cursed city." Others scoff. "Jerusalem? There's more gold here than in all of Palestine." And so the army stays, not pilgrims, not conquerors, but creditors camped outside paradise. Winter arrives, harsh and merciless. Snow falls on the shattered streets, muffling the noise of unrest. Inside the palace, Alexios IV grows desperate. He promises to bring new wealth by uniting the Greek and Latin churches, but the Orthodox clergy reject him outright. "We will not kneel to Rome," they hiss. "We would sooner kneel to the devil." The emperor prays nightly in Hagia Sophia, kneeling beneath the dome that has outlasted 1,000 kings. You watch him sometimes, the flicker of lamplight on his face, the exhaustion in his eyes. He whispers, "God, they don't understand. I did this for them, but perhaps even God has stopped listening." One night in early January, an assassin's knife flashes in the palace corridors. The guards catch him before the blow lands. A palace eunuch, they say, paid by nobles loyal to the old emperor. But the message is clear. Alexios IV's time is running out. In the streets, the people begin to chant a new name, Alexios Doukas, called Murtzouphlos for his heavy brows and darker temper. He's cunning, ruthless, and utterly fearless. Everything the boy emperor is not. By February, he has the army's loyalty. By March, he has the city. One night, the gates of the palace swing open, and the young emperor is seized in his chambers. He doesn't even fight. They drag him away to a cell, the same cell where his father once wept in blindness, and strangle him with a bowstring. In the morning, the people cheer. The Latins across the water hear the sound and understand what it means. Their emperor, their ally, their excuse, gone. In the Crusader camp, the Doge listens to the news in silence. "So," he says softly, "the Greeks have killed their debt." He turns to the barons. "Gentlemen, we are no longer guests. We are creditors, and creditors must collect outside. The bells of Hagia Sophia toll for the dead, for Alexios, for his father, for the empire that's just signed its own death warrant." The Crusaders begin sharpening their swords again. The city freezes under a grey sky. The Bosporus is a mirror of ice. The wind cuts through armour, and Constantinople, that proud golden queen of cities, looks brittle enough to shatter. The old banners of Alexios IV still hang limp on the palace towers, but everyone knows the truth. The boy is dead, strangled by his own nobles, and in his place stands Alexios Doukas, called Murtzouphlos, the frowning one. His reign begins not with a coronation, but with vengeance. Inside the Blachernay Palace, the new emperor stands before his generals. The hall is cold, the mosaics cracked from the fire that swept through months before. Murtzouphlos wears no crown, only chainmail and a sword belt. His dark brows shadow his eyes as he speaks. Enough of weakness, enough of foreigners. The city is Greek again. The Franks will leave or burn, the generals bow. For the first time in years, Byzantium has a ruler who sounds like a soldier. You watch him from the crowd that gathers in the hippodrome as he addresses the people. His voice is low, rough, but certain. "They came calling themselves brothers," he says, gesturing toward the Crusader camps across the water. "They came as thieves. They came for gold, not God, and now they will pay." The roar that answers him shakes the stands. Death to the Latins. That night, every Latin merchant, monk and priest left in the city is hunted down. The alleyways echo with screams. The Venetian quarter, what little survived the earlier fires, is wiped out entirely. Churches that once served Latin pilgrims are torn apart stone by stone. The slaughter runs for hours, then days. When it's done, the snow is black with soot and red with blood. Across the Golden Horn, the Crusader camps see the flames and know what it means. In the tent of Boniface of Montferrat, the barons gather, their faces drawn tight with cold and fury. The old Doge of Venice sits wrapped in furs, his blind eyes turned toward the sound of crackling fire. "They have murdered the emperor we swore to protect," Boniface says quietly. "They have murdered our gold," Baldwin of Flanders corrects him. The Doge lifts a hand for silence. "It is not murder," he says, voice low and even. "It is betrayal, and betrayal must be answered." There's no debate after that. The decision is made. The crusade will take Constantinople by force, but winter is a cruel ally. The frozen winds from the north scour the camps, tearing tents and numbing fingers. Food runs low, horses die in the night. The soldiers curse the city across the water, whose towers gleam faintly in the frost. They dream of its granaries, its wine cellars, its gold. Hunger makes faith a fragile thing. Meanwhile, within the walls, Emperor Morzufloss works feverishly. He strengthens the gates, repairs the walls, gathers soldiers, not the soft palace guards of Alexius IV, but hardened veterans from Thrace and Asia Minor. He orders new engines built, catapults mounted, boiling oil prepared. The city is turning into a fortress again, as it was in the days of Constantine and Justinian. But the people are restless. Famine gnaws at them. Trade has stopped. The granaries are empty. They still cheer their new emperor, but the cheers sound thin. He promises salvation, but the streets whisper fear, and the Crusaders wait. Through the cold nights, bonfires burn along the shoreline. From the ramparts, the Byzantines can see the enemy's shadows moving, dark figures singing hymns that sound like dirges. Sometimes the two sides shout insults across the water. "Go home, Latins," the Greeks yell. "You are worse than Turks." The Crusaders shout back, "Better Turks than traitors." The wind carries the words away, lost between smoke and sea. Inside Hagia Sophia, the priests hold vigil. The great dome, once gleaming gold, is dimmed by soot. Candles flicker in front of the icons, their light trembling on the faces of saints. You stand at the back, helmet under your arm, listening to the chant. Old Greek words rising and falling in a rhythm older than empire. One monk leans close and whispers, "The city will fall. I saw it in a dream. Fire from the sea, angels weeping." You want to believe he's wrong. But outside, the wind howls and you know he's not. By March, the sea begins to thaw. The Crusaders stir like starving wolves. From the Venetian shipyards, new siege towers rise taller than before, plated in wet hides against Greek fire. They glitter like beasts of iron. The Doge himself oversees their construction, his hands trembling but his voice steady. "This time," he tells his captains, "we take the city. Not for popes or princes, for Venice." In the Crusader camp, priests preach vengeance disguised as holiness. "The Greeks have betrayed the true faith," they cry. "Their emperor is a murderer, their priests heretics. God himself has delivered them into our hands." The men cheer, hollow but loud. Deep down, they know it isn't piety driving them, it's rage, debt, and hunger. Across the water, Morzufloss watches from the walls. He's not afraid. The Crusaders failed once, they'll fail again. His scouts report their dwindling supplies, their quarrels, their illness. "They're dying," he tells his generals. "They won't last the month." But he's wrong. The Crusaders have nothing left to lose, and men who've lost everything are dangerous. One night, as snow begins to melt and the river ice cracks apart, you stand by the shore and see the torches of the fleet gathering. The sound of drums echoes across the Golden Horn. The sky glows orange, not from dawn, but from fire. The Venetians have lit their siege towers. The assault is coming. Inside the city, the bells of Hagia Sophia begin to ring again, not for prayer this time, but for war. And when they stop, Constantinople's 1,000-year reign will end. The morning of April 12th, 1204, dawns beneath a sky the colour of molten brass. The Golden Horn is eerily still, the water reflecting firelight from 100 torches and burning pitchpots. And in that orange half-light, the greatest Christian army ever assembled against Christians readies itself for war. You stand among them, thousands of soldiers lining the decks of Venetian ships, armor clinking, breath steaming in the cold. The smell of tar and iron fills the air. Somewhere behind you, priests murmur prayers, their voices drowned by the beating of drums. The banners above your head flutter in the wind, red crosses on white cloth, symbols that once meant salvation and now look like stains. Across the water, Constantinople glows in the dawn, its domes and towers gilded with sunlight, its walls bristling with defenders. On those walls stands Emperor Alexios V Doukas, called Murtzouphlos, wrapped in armour black as obsidian. His soldiers wait in silence. They've been told this day will end the Latin menace forever. Then, somewhere in the Venetian line, a trumpet sounds, the sea erupts, oars plunge in unison, ships surge forward. The Venetian galleys drive straight toward the sea walls, their bows sheathed in iron. The siege towers, taller than any mast, roll on their decks like floating fortresses, creaking and groaning. From their upper platforms, archers loose volleys of arrows that hiss through the air like a storm of locusts. The Byzantines answer with Greek fire. Jets of burning oil roar from bronze tubes mounted on the walls, engulfing the first wave of ships in flame. The sea itself seems to burn, reflecting the fire like a living mirror. Men leap overboard, their screams short and sharp before the water swallows them. Still, the Venetians come on. Blind and ancient Doge Enrico Dandolo stands at the prow of his galley, the banner of St. Mark clutched in his frail hands. "Forward!" he cries. "God wills it, or gold does." His ship crashes into the wall, hooks biting into stone. Around him knights cheer wildly, half in faith, half in madness. The Frankish cavalry, meanwhile, assaults the land walls near the Blachernay quarter. They drag siege ladders through mud and blood, shouting prayers in languages no one on the other side understands. The Byzantines fire down from the parapets, arrows glinting like rain. Each time a ladder rises, it's shoved back with boiling oil or heavy stones. The ground below becomes slick with corpses. You climb one of the siege towers, your hands raw, your lungs full of smoke. From the top, the city stretches out before you, vast, endless, and so heartbreakingly beautiful it almost doesn't feel real. The domes shine like molten gold, the marble walls glow in the firelight. For a moment, you hesitate. What right do any of you have to destroy this? Then you see a friend fall beside you, pierced through the chest by an arrow, and whatever pity you felt burns away. You scream and surge forward. At noon, the tide turns. A gust of wind shifts the Venetian sails, pushing their ships closer to the seawall. One by one, their drawbridges drop onto the battlements with thunderous clangs. The Crusaders charge across, steel flashing. The first men die instantly, but the next wave breaks through. A section of the wall falls. Panic ripples through the defenders. Murtzouphlos gallops along the inner ramparts, shouting for order, but it's too late. The Venetian marines swarm the lower towers, their axes biting into doors and hinges. Flames spread along the waterfront. The roar of battle merges with the wail of church bells as the city realizes the unthinkable has begun. Constantinople, the unconquered, is breached. You leap down onto the parapet, your boots slipping on blood-slick stone. Around you, the air shatters with noise. Swords clashing, arrows whistling, men shouting prayers, curses, names. The sky fills with black smoke, blotting out the sun. Somewhere behind you, a knight raises the banner of the cross atop a captured tower. The sight sends a shock through both armies. Triumph for one, terror for the other. From the palace, Murtzouphlos sees the banners rise and knows it's over. He flees before dusk, abandoning his soldiers just as his predecessor did. He loads his treasures onto a horse, rides through the gates, and disappears into the countryside. As night falls, the defenders begin to break. The gates at the harbour are forced open. The Crusaders pour in like a flood. You cross the threshold of the seawall and step onto the streets of the city, the marble streets of Constantine himself. The air inside the walls is thick with smoke and gold dust. Everything glitters, even the ash. For the first time in history, an enemy army walks freely through the heart of Constantinople. You hear the Doge's voice again, faint but clear above the chaos. Take what is owed. The soldiers obey. They scatter through the city, torches flaring, swords drawn, doors splinter, windows shatter. The first cries of civilians echo through the night. Churches that once rang with hymns now echo with screams. The siege has ended, but the sack has begun. You look back toward the walls, still smouldering against the red horizon, and you realize this isn't conquest. It's catastrophe. The army that came to save Christendom has just murdered it. The walls of Constantinople, which for 900 years had stood like the ribs of God himself, are broken. The sound of their fall doesn't come as a single crash, but as a chorus, stone cracking, towers collapsing, and the distant cry of church bells tolling their own requiem. It's April 13th, 1204, and the Queen of Cities has lost her crown. You stumble through the smoke and rubble, the world reduced to grey and red. The air burns your lungs, thick with the stench of oil and blood. Ash drifts down like black snow. The ground trembles beneath your boots, not from battle now, but from the slow dying groans of the city itself. Behind you, the Venetian galleys still burn on the Golden Horn, their mast collapsing into the sea. Ahead, Frankish knights pour through the breaches in the walls, shouting victory in tongues no Byzantine can understand. The defenders are gone, fled, slain, or swallowed by chaos. You see their bodies sprawled across the battlements, armour cracked, icons still clutched in dead hands. The cross they wore on their shields is the same as yours. The difference now is only the direction of the blade. Inside the city, the Crusaders move like a tide, looting as they go. Their faces are smeared with ash and sweat, eyes wide with disbelief. Some laugh as they pry gold from church doors, others weep openly, a few murmur prayers, ashamed even as they steal. You pass a church, St. Mary of Blachernay, and see a knight tear the jewelled veil from the altar. The priest who protests is struck down where he stands. Outside, a group of soldiers drag a bronze icon of the Virgin through the mud, shouting drunken hymns. The irony is unbearable. The army that came to protect Christendom now desecrates its holiest city. In the distance, the Hagia Sophia dominates the skyline, that eternal dome shimmering in the firelight like a crown of gold. The Crusaders see it too, and the cry goes up. To the great church, to God's house. You follow them, half out of duty, half out of horror. The streets are narrow, choked with smoke and bodies. Doors hang open, their thresholds slick with spilled wine and blood. The marble pavements are scattered with broken icons, shattered relics, the glint of coins trampled underfoot. From every direction you hear the sounds of madness, the clatter of looting, the screams of women, the crash of statues. By the time you reach Hagia Sophia, the bronze doors have already been forced. You step into the vastness of it and stop breathing. Light filters through the smoke in golden shafts, illuminating mosaics of Christ and angels. The air smells of incense, oil, and blood. Beneath the dome, that perfect, impossible dome, knights have already begun piling up treasures, gold chalices, icons, vestments embroidered with pearls. A Venetian priest stands on the pulpit, waving his arms and shouting, "This is God's will!" His enemies are cast down. His voice echoes madly off the walls. Then, in a moment that will stain history forever, a drunken soldier climbs onto the high altar, the same altar before which emperors once knelt, and throws himself back laughing, goblet in hand. The crowd roars. A woman's scream cuts through it. Somewhere, someone begins to sing a hymn in mockery. You can't watch. You step outside into the sunlight, blinking. The city roars behind you as an orchestra of destruction. Everywhere churches burn, palaces crumble. Monks run through the streets carrying relics, chased by soldiers with swords drawn. The flames reach the sky, curling black and orange. Birds scatter. The sea reflects it all, a mirror of apocalypse. The Doge of Venice is carried into the city on a litter, blind eyes hidden behind a veil, surrounded by guards. He smells the smoke and smiles. At last, he says, Venice is paid. In the Blachernay Palace, the Crusader lords hold council amid looted furniture and broken icons. Boniface of Montferrat sits at the head of the table, a cup of stolen Byzantine wine in his hand. The city is ours, he says. Now we must choose an emperor. Baldwin of Flanders, someone says. A true noble. Boniface himself, another counters. He took the walls first. The Doge interrupts. Whoever sits that throne, he murmurs, will sit with Venetian permission. They all laugh, but none of them deny it. Night falls, and the fires keep burning. From the hilltops you can see the whole city lit in orange and gold, as if the sun had decided never to rise again. The sound of hammering and shouting never stops. In the harbour, ships are loaded with plunder, silks, relics, jewels, gold plate. Every church, every palace, every tomb is stripped. Even the sarcophagus of Emperor Justinian is opened, his body thrown aside so the jewels on his robes can be stolen. In one quarter, a band of knights discovers a library filled with scrolls and manuscripts. They tear the gold bindings off the covers, then use the parchment to wrap fish and light torches. 1,000 years of knowledge burns in an hour. By dawn, the city has been utterly transformed. Smoke rises from every district. The air hums with the sound of bells melting in the heat. A crusader walks past you dragging a silver candlestick taller than himself. He grins and says, "Jerusalem can wait." This is heaven enough. You look toward the Golden Gate where emperors once rode in triumph and see it blackened, shattered. A dead horse lies across the steps, its rider still tangled in the reins. Somewhere in the ruins, a monk kneels, clutching a handful of ash. "This was the new Rome," he whispers, "and now it's Babylon." You kneel too, though you don't know why. Maybe it's guilt. Maybe it's disbelief. The city feels alive, even in ruin, its breath hot, its heart broken. Behind you, the great bell of Hagia Sophia cracks in the heat and falls, ringing once before shattering. The sound echoes over the Bosporus, carrying far beyond the smoke. The Queen of Cities has fallen, not to infidels, not to heretics, but to her own brothers in Christ. And the world will never forgive it. For 3 days the city screams. No order, no command, no prayer can stop it. Constantinople, the greatest city in Christendom, the crossroads of East and West, has become a furnace of greed and despair. The walls are breached, the palace is stripped, the church is desecrated, and for 72 hours the soldiers of the cross gorge themselves on the death of a civilization. You walk through the chaos, half soldier, half witness, too stunned to act. The streets you marched past in awe just days ago are unrecognizable. Marble pavements slick with blood, statues shattered, domes collapsing in flame. The air is thick with ash that glows like embers when it catches the light. Everywhere you look, men are looting. A Frankish knight drags a Byzantine noble from his home by the beard, laughing as he pries rings from the man's fingers. A Venetian sailor shoulders an icon of the Virgin, gold leaf flaking off under his greasy hands. In the hippodrome, where chariots once raced before emperors, soldiers set up campfires beneath the bronze horses of Lysippus, debating which ship will carry them home. The Doge of Venice already knows the answer. Those horses will stand in St. Mark's Square before the year is out. In the churches, things are worse. Hagia Sophia, the crown of Christendom, the holiest building in the empire, has become a slaughterhouse. You step inside and nearly fall to your knees. The golden dome gleams with smoke-stained light, reflecting the fires outside. The great altar has been stripped, its relics scattered. Soldiers chase terrified nuns down the aisles. A drunken knight sits on the patriarch's throne, crown on his head, goblet in hand, laughing as his companions toast him, Emperor of Constantinople. In the apse, a prostitute dances on the high altar, her hair wild, her voice hoarse with song. Someone shouts, "Leave her, the Virgin has left this place." The laughter that follows sounds like the crack of hell opening. Elsewhere, priests try to save what relics they can. The shroud of Christ, a fragment of the true cross, bones of saints. Some manage to smuggle them to the harbour, bribing crusader guards with silver or silk. Others die clutching them, cut down on the church steps. The Venetians are the most methodical. Their scribes move through the city with ledgers and lists marking what can be carried, what can be melted, what can be sold. They take the bronze doors of palaces, the silver railings of altars, the gold mosaics of chapels. Their engineers pry jewels from icons using chisels meant for siege engines. In one quarter, a band of Flemish soldiers finds the imperial treasury. They break open the vaults and stare in silence at the mountain of coins, jewels, and relics. Then they fall to their knees, not in prayer, but in hunger. They load the gold into sacks, tearing their own banners into strips to carry it. When the sacks tear and spill, they leave the coins where they fall. There's too much to take, too much to even imagine. You pass a courtyard where children are crying. Their mother lies beside them, her hand still gripping the crucifix torn from her neck. A priest kneels beside her, murmuring Latin prayers that sound alien in this Greek city. You realise with a hollow ache that he's one of yours. Even the night offers no mercy. Fires burn without pause. The city glows like a forge. The sky is red, the sea black. From the docks you see ships loading treasure, statues, tapestries, relics, anything that glitters. The Venetians count each crate carefully, marking them with the Lion of St. Mark. The Doge watches from his litter, his blind eyes hidden behind a veil. Every empire ends in profit, he murmurs. On the second day, the killing slows. There's simply no one left to kill. The Crusaders begin dividing the city. Boniface of Montferrat claims the imperial palace, planting his banner where the Byzantine eagles once flew. Baldwin of Flanders takes the northern quarter. The Doge claims the harbours and all their warehouses. The priests declare it God's judgment. The Greeks were proud, they preach, and pride must burn. The men nod, half listening, half drunk. They know it's not God's will that drives them. It's greed. On the third day, the fires die. The smoke clears just enough for sunlight to pierce through, touching what remains of the city. You walk through it in silence. The air smells of charred wood and sea salt and death. You see the Hagia Sophia again. Its dome cracked, its walls blackened, the last traces of gold still clinging to the stone. You think of what this city once was, the beating heart of an empire, the place where East met West, where art and learning survived the dark ages of the world. You think of what it could have been if men had chosen faith over fortune. But no one chose. The priests now bless the looters. The nobles declare new borders. The Doge orders a massive thanksgiving amid the ruins. The choir sings off-key, their voices thin under the open sky where the roof of the church has collapsed. And as the smoke drifts east over the Bosporus, you realise something that chills you more than the blood on your hands. This is not a victory. It's an ending. An empire built on 1,000 years of faith and wisdom has been erased in 3 days of madness. The Crusaders will sail home with gold, relics and glory. Venice will rise to rule the seas. But Christendom itself, that fragile bridge between Rome and Constantinople, has cracked forever. You look out over the burned city and whisper a prayer, though you don't know for whom. Forgive us. We knew not what we did. The wind doesn't answer. It only carries the sound of hammers as the victors begin dividing the ruins. The Queen of Cities lies dead at their feet, her crown melted into coins. The fires have died, but the smoke still hangs like a curse over the city. The once golden domes are blackened, the marble palaces hollowed shells. Constantinople, the jewel of the East, the heart of Orthodox Christendom, lies in ruins. And out of those ashes, like a crow from a corpse, something new begins to stir. You stand on the hippodrome surrounded by debris and the stench of death. The bronze horses that once watched over the races are gone, hauled onto Venetian ships to be displayed in St. Mark's Square. Around you, the surviving citizens move like ghosts, their faces grey, their voices hushed. They step carefully through the wreckage, as if afraid the city itself will shatter further beneath their feet. But amid the ruin, the conquerors are busy remaking the world. The barons of the Fourth Crusade gather in the Blachernay Palace, once the seat of Byzantine emperors, now stripped bare of its splendour. The mosaics of saints are smeared with soot. The great throne of gold and ivory stands empty. The Doge of Venice sits in its shadow, veiled and silent, as the Latin lords argue over who will rule this broken city. Boniface of Montferrat took the walls first, one says. Baldwin of Flanders commands the largest army, another counters. The Doge raises a hand. His voice, calm and measured, cuts through the noise. Let us choose an emperor by vote, he says. But remember, whoever wears the crown owes his throne to Venice. And so, in a solemn ceremony held amid the wreckage, Baldwin of Flanders is elected Emperor of Constantinople, ruler of what will soon be called the Latin Empire. They crown him in Hagia Sophia, that wounded cathedral, its floor still stained with the blood of priests. The golden dome, cracked by fire, glimmers weakly in the candlelight. Latin priests chant hymns in a tongue, foreign to the Greek faithful, their voices echoing in the hollow space where choirs once sang to the rhythm of Byzantine liturgy. Baldwin kneels before the altar, and a Venetian cardinal places the imperial crown upon his head. "Long live Baldwin, Emperor of the Romans," the assembled knights shout. their words ringing false in the ruined church. Outside, the people of Constantinople watch in silence. They do not cheer, they do not curse, they simply turn away. The new emperor rides through the city the next morning, past burned markets, collapsed churches and deserted homes. His golden armour gleams in the sunlight, but his expression is grim. Every street whispers the same truth. This is a kingdom built on theft. Still, Baldwin tries to govern. He appoints Latin lords to rule over the provinces. Venice takes the islands and ports. Boniface claims Thessalonica. Others carve up the land like vultures at a carcass. They call it Romania, the new Latin realm. On parchment it looks grand, a reborn empire uniting east and west under one crown. But parchment burns faster than cities. From the start, the new empire bleeds. The Byzantines who survived the sack retreat to the east, to Nicaea, Trebizond and Epirus, founding their own shadow kingdoms. Their leaders swear vengeance, their priests curse the Latins in every liturgy. In the streets of Constantinople resentment festers. The Latin knights swagger through the markets, demanding tribute, while the Greek citizens starve. The new rulers seize churches, replacing Orthodox priests with Latin ones. The locals whisper that the saints have fled the city, that angels no longer guard its walls, and perhaps they're right. Venice grows rich on the spoils. Trade routes secured, islands seized, the harbours of the Aegean theirs for the taking. The Doge's ships sail home heavy with plunder, relics, jewels, the bronze horses, the spoils of 1,000 years. In St. Mark's Basilica, the Venetians build altars from the bones of Byzantium. Meanwhile, Baldwin sits alone in the palace, his throne cold, his treasury empty. The gold they looted vanishes faster than he can count it. The barons quarrel, the people rebel. Every night the emperor dreams of fire, of Hagia Sophia burning, of the dome collapsing, of the saints turning their faces away. By 1205, the rebellion begins. Byzantine loyalists rise from Nicaea, led by Theodore Lascaris, the son-in-law of the dead emperor. To the north, the Bulgarians march under King Kaloyan, who calls himself the Avenger of the Greeks. His army descends upon the Latin Empire like a storm. Baldwin rides out to meet them at Adrianople, his banners flying, his faith renewed, but it's faith in the wrong gods. The Bulgarians crush the Latins utterly. Baldwin is captured, dragged in chains to Tarnovo, and disappears. Some say he was executed, others that he died in a tower cell, his skull made into a goblet for Kaloyan's court. The Latin Empire lives on, but only in name. It rules little beyond the walls of Constantinople, a dying ember where an empire once blazed. Inside the city, the Latins continue to strip what's left. Marble columns torn down for lime, churches turned into stables, the palaces of emperors sold for scrap. The Queen of Cities becomes a beggar's ruin, her streets haunted by ghosts of what she was. And yet, even in ruin, Constantinople endures. Its people whisper prayers in Greek, light candles in the shadows, and wait. The empire may be dead, but the faith, that strange stubborn spark, refuses to die. One day, they tell their children, the cross will rise again over Hagia Sophia, not the red cross of the West, but the old one, the Byzantine one, with faith instead of fire. For now, though, the Latin lords drink to victory, and the Doge's ships sail home across a sea glittering with stolen gold. The Queen of Cities sleeps beneath their laughter, dreaming of revenge. The years drift like smoke over a battlefield. Constantinople, once the navel of the world, lies hollow. Its walls still stand, its domes still gleam faintly in the sun, but the soul of the city is gone, scattered with the ashes that once filled its air. The Latin Empire rules in name, but the true Byzantium has slipped through their fingers like sand. You walk through its streets 20 years after the sack and the silence is heavier than any noise. The marble colonnades are cracked, the statues toppled, their faces worn smooth by wind and time. Grass grows in the hippodrome where chariots once thundered. The fountains of the palaces no longer run, their basins filled with rainwater and dead leaves. The Latin soldiers, those few who remain, look around them with the same dull confusion you see in every dying city. They were promised paradise and found only dust. Many have gone home to France or Flanders, others have gone native, marrying Greek widows, trading their armour for tunics, their prayers for excuses. The nobles in the Blashenay Palace try to rule as if nothing has changed. They hold court among the cracked mosaics and scorched icons, issuing decrees that reach no farther than the next street. Their empire is a map drawn on fog, and yet the ghosts of Byzantium walk everywhere. In the Hagia Sophia, still standing but stripped bare, you can almost hear the old hymns under the Latin chants. The air carries whispers of the liturgy of St. John Chrysostom, the same prayers once sung by emperors and saints. Even the Latin priests feel it. Their words sound wrong in this space, too sharp, too foreign. The dome listens and remembers. You visit the quarter of the monks, what's left of it. Their beards are white, their robes tattered, their eyes blazing with silent rage. One tells you, they took our gold, our relics, our books, but they could not take our language, and they cannot pray as we do. He smiles then, a small secret smile. We will outlive them. He's right, because even as the Latins cling to the ruins, the Byzantines in exile are rebuilding. Across the sea in Nicaea, the Empire of Nicaea grows strong under Theodore Lascaris and his sons. Its walls are clean, its treasury full, its armies disciplined. They call themselves the true heirs of Constantine, and they dream every night of taking back their city. To the north, the Empire of Trebizond thrives on the Black Sea coast, trading with Persia and Armenia. Its rulers call themselves emperors too, their coinage stamped with the same titles as the Caesars of old. And in the west, in the rugged hills of Epirus, a third remnant rises, a smaller, fiercer Byzantium, half monk, half warlord. Its ruler, Michelangelus, sends letters to Nicaea, to Trebizond, to any who will listen. The Latins are weak. The time will come. Meanwhile, in Constantinople itself, the cracks widen. The Latin barons squabble endlessly, Venetians against Flemings, Lombards against French. The treasury is empty, the garrisons unpaid. Pirates raid the islands, Bulgarians prowl the borders, and the people curse their Roman emperor in a dozen languages. One spring the plague comes. It sweeps through the city like a ghost wind, silent and deadly. The priests die first, then the merchants, then the soldiers. The survivors burn the dead in heaps along the harbour, their ashes drifting into the Bosporus. You walk past the pyres and realise that the empire that replaced Byzantium is already rotting from within. But the spirit of the old city, that strange defiant faith, refuses to vanish. In the small churches that escape destruction, Greek priests whisper the liturgy in secret, teaching children to cross themselves the old way, right to left. They hide icons behind false walls, sing hymns under their breath, and tell the next generation the stories of emperors and saints who will one day return. At night, when the wind blows from the east, you swear you can hear the old city breathing, the hum of distant chanting, the echo of bells that no longer ring. The Venetians, who are not prone to superstition, refuse to walk near Hagia Sophia after dark. The angels guard it still, they whisper. Decades pass. The Latin Empire shrinks, eaten from every side. One by one its castles fall, its allies vanish. The Venetians hold on to their ports, but even they begin to withdraw their ships, sensing the profit is gone. The once proud conquerors now fight just to keep the lights on. In 1261, a new army gathers on the shores of the Bosporus. At its head rides Michael VIII Palaiologos, Emperor of Nicaea, the man who will finish what generations of exiles began. His spies find a hidden postern gate, left unguarded by the sleeping Latin sentries. Before dawn, his men slip into the city. There's no great battle this time, no fire, no trumpets, no siege towers, only the quiet sound of boots on marble and the whisper of swords drawn in darkness. When the sun rises, the Latin banners are torn down. The cross of the double-headed eagle flies again over the walls. The Byzantine Empire, battered but unbowed, is reborn. You stand in the Hagia Sophia as the priests return, carrying icons hidden for half a century. The golden dome catches the light once more, and the air fills with the sound of chanting, soft, trembling, but alive. The Queen of Cities breathes again. But it is not the same Constantinople. The palaces are still ruins, the libraries still gone, the empire smaller than ever. The glory that once lit the world will never fully return. Still, when the priests raise the first hymn after 50 years of silence, the walls seem to shiver, as if the stones themselves remember. For a moment, It feels as though time has folded, that the ghosts of emperors and saints are kneeling beside you, their faces lit by candlelight, their voices joining the living in song. For a moment, Byzantium is alive again. The banners of the double-headed eagle rise once again over the ramparts of Constantinople, but their gold thread gleams faintly, like a dying sun. It is 1261, and after 57 years of exile, the Byzantines have returned. Trumpets blare through ruined streets, bells ring from soot-blackened towers, and the citizens, those few who never fled, kneel and weep. You stand among them, watching Michael VIII Palaiologos, the restorer emperor, ride through the Golden Gate on a white horse. The air smells of salt, incense, and ash, the same mixture that has haunted this city for centuries. Behind him march soldiers from Nicaea, grim and tired, eyes wide as they take in the ruins that once were the heart of Christendom. At first glance it looks like triumph, but look closer and you see the truth. The city they reclaimed is only a skeleton of its former self. The palaces of Blakeney and Bucolion are gutted husks, their mosaics looted long ago. The hippodrome is a graveyard of toppled statues. The great forums where merchants once traded silk and silver are nothing but empty squares choked with weeds. The once proud walls, Theodosian, legendary, are cracked and crumbling, vines crawling up their sides. The Queen of Cities still wears her crown, but it's tarnished. Michael VIII walks through the palace halls in silence, his footsteps echoing. He sees the remnants of Latin occupation everywhere. Churches converted to stables, frescoes painted over, relics gone forever. They left nothing but dust, he whispers. Still, he's determined to rebuild. He orders the churches cleansed, the altars reconsecrated, the icons restored to their places. The first divine liturgy held in Hagia Sophia after its reconquest is both beautiful and heartbreaking. The priests sing the old hymns, but their voices tremble. Half the city gathers to watch, weeping, crossing themselves again and again. You look up at the dome, cracked yet luminous, and it's as if the city is breathing again for the first time in decades. But the breath is shallow. Michael tries to strengthen his empire. He repairs alliances, reorganizes armies, fortifies walls. He sends envoys to Western courts, hoping to heal the centuries-old rift between Rome and Constantinople. But the memory of the Fourth Crusade is still raw. The Pope demands obedience, Michael offers friendship. Neither gets what he wants. The Latins call the new Byzantium a ghost, and in a way, they're right. The empire no longer stretches from Italy to Syria. Its borders barely reach beyond Thrace and the Aegean coast. Anatolia, the empire's heartland, is slipping away to Turkish warlords who fight with the same fire the Arabs once brought. The peasants, weary from centuries of war and taxation, no longer see Constantinople as the shining city of God. And within the city itself the rot remains. The nobles bicker and scheme, the clergy argue over doctrine, mercenaries fill the streets, their loyalty bought by the coin. The people survive on memory of an age of emperors, of saints, of victories long gone. You walk the Mese, the main avenue that once glittered with gold and silk shops. Now it's quiet. Old women sell figs and bread beneath shattered arches. Children chase each other among broken columns. The air carries the faint hum of chanting from distant churches. Soft, steady, a heartbeat in a dying body. At night the city glows with oil lamps reflected in the Bosporus, a fragile light against the vast dark. Across the water, the lights of Asia Minor flicker, but they belong to someone else now. The Turks are rising, uniting under new leaders, testing the Byzantine borders like wolves at a weakening fence. The emperor knows it. "We are not Rome anymore," he says one night, standing on the palace balcony. "We are what remains after the fire." He's not wrong. The reborn empire is a candle in a storm, but even a candle can defy the dark. For another 2 centuries the Byzantines endure. They build, trade, and pray. They carve new icons from the same marble the Latins defiled. They teach Greek again in their schools, copying manuscripts from the few that survived the sack. Scholars, monks, and poets keep the old light alive, even as the walls crumble around them. You meet one of them, an aged scholar in a ruined monastery near the harbour. His beard is white, his hands ink-stained. "They think we're finished," he says, smiling faintly. "But ideas do not die. The Latins took our gold, yes, but they took our learning too, and in time It will wake their world as it once woke ours. He's right, though neither of you can know it yet. The knowledge smuggled out of Constantinople, its books, its teachers, its philosophy, will soon light the Renaissance in Italy. The empire will fade, but its spirit will ignite others. Still, within these walls life grows thinner. By the 14th century, Constantinople is a ghost city, vast empty quarters reclaimed by grass and silence. Travellers describe it as a village within walls for giants. The palaces rot. The sea gates crumble. The empire that once baptized the world can barely feed itself. But on feast days, when the bells ring from Hagia Sophia and the incense fills the air, the city remembers who it was. The people gather in the squares, their candles flickering against the twilight, their songs trembling with hope. You stand among them and feel it too, that strange stubborn light that refuses to go out. They know the end is coming. Everyone does. But not tonight. Tonight, the Queen of Cities still breathes, still prays, still dares to believe she will rise again. And perhaps that belief, foolish though it seems, is the last true miracle of Byzantium. The wind from the Bosporus blows cold across the empty towers. It's 1453, and the Queen of Cities stands once more on the edge of eternity. The walls are cracked, the treasury is bare, and the empire that once ruled from Spain to Syria has shrunk to this: one city, a few islands, and the memory of 1,000 years. You walk the walls at dawn. The air smells of salt and dust. Below you, the Ottoman army stretches to the horizon. Tents like stars, banners fluttering in the wind, the faint hum of drums and prayers. The city's defenders, barely 7,000 men, wait in silence behind the same walls that once defied all the armies of the world. At the centre of it all stands Constantine XI Palaiologos, the last emperor. He wears no crown, only armour worn from years of battle. His eyes are steady, his voice calm. "We were born in this city," he tells his soldiers, "and here we will die. Better to fall with honour than live without it." That night he attends one final liturgy in Hagia Sophia. The golden dome glows faintly in the candlelight, cracked but still radiant. Priests chant in Greek and Latin together, east and west, reconciled at last in despair. Men who once hated each other kneel side by side, confessing, weeping, crossing themselves. The emperor bows his head and whispers, "God, forgive us for losing your city." The next morning the cannons thunder, the earth shakes, the walls crumble, smoke covers the sky like a shroud. The Ottomans surge forward, tens of thousands shouting "Allahu Akbar" as they pour through the breaches. The defenders fight like shadows of an older age, blades flashing, shields splintering. You see Constantine for a final moment, sword raised, vanishing into the crush. He is never seen again. When the dust settles, Constantinople falls. The crescent rises where the cross once stood. In Hagia Sophia, the muezzin's call to prayer echoes through the same dome that once carried the hymns of emperors. The world has changed forever. And yet, something endures. In the silence after conquest, the city still breathes. The marble glows in moonlight, the sea murmurs against the stones, and the ghosts of Byzantium walk among the ruins. Emperors, monks, soldiers, saints, their whispers twining through the night. The books they wrote, the art they carved, the faith they kept, all of it will ripple outward, seeding worlds yet unborn. You close your eyes and listen. Beneath the waves of time, beneath the noise of conquest and empire, you can still hear it. The heartbeat of Constantinople, slow and steady, refusing to die. So sleep now, traveller. The story is done, but the song lingers. The walls are fallen, but the light, that strange, unyielding Byzantine light, still flickers somewhere between heaven and history. And if you ever stand by the Bosporus at night, when the wind is soft and the water glows, listen closely. You might just hear the faint echo of 1,000 bells, ringing not in grief, but in memory. Because even in ruin, the Queen of Cities still dreams. The fires are gone now. The walls no longer shake. Constantinople lies quiet beneath a sky washed clean of smoke. The sea laps gently against the stones where the great fleets once burned, and the city, exhausted, finally exhales. You walk alone through the ruins, the marble cool beneath your feet, the air heavy with the scent of rain and salt. The streets are empty, but they remember. Every step carries a whisper, of prayers half sung, of bells that once called the faithful to worship, of footsteps that will never return. The gold is gone, the banner's fallen, yet something faint lingers, a pulse under the silence, steady and stubborn. It's the same pulse that carried the city through siege after siege, the same quiet defiance that built domes to touch heaven. The sea breeze moves softly through broken arches, rustling the ivy that climbs the walls. Somewhere, a single candle still burns inside a chapel too small to notice, its flame trembling but unextinguished. You watch it for a moment and realize, this is what survives when empires don't. Not the marble, not the crowns, the light. You take a slow breath. The air tastes of endings, but also of something waiting. Like the calm after a storm or the pause before dawn, the Queen of Cities sleeps, but she is not gone. Her stories live in the whispers of history, in the glimmer of icons, in the rhythm of waves against her shores. So close your eyes, traveller. Let the wind carry you east, where the stars still shine above the Bosporus. Listen for the faint echo of bells across the water. Not mourning now, but memory. And rest, knowing that even in ruin, Constantinople still dreams. Good night, sweet dreams is.